We want to continue our conversation now with Mayor Chokwe Lumumba of Jackson, Mississippi. And Mayor, the statistics bear this out. Black folk get it when it comes to COVID-19. Didn't take a long time before we started to mask up, social distance, sanitize our hands. Are you seeing that in Jackson as well? And do you take some credit, I guess, as the mayor of Jackson for early on telling people, hey, this thing is deadly, and they took you seriously?
Well, I've had the benefit of a COVID-19 task force, which is populated by some brilliant individuals, people who not only sacrificed their time, but their genius towards the effort of standing up the most proactive strategy that we could. We were happy, especially early on in the pandemic, that we had a relatively low rate of infection compared to cities of similar size. Unfortunately, we saw the governor make a decision to open the state back up, forcing our hands because we were surrounded. I use the analogy of being on an island. When you have water to the north, south, east, and west of you, then your chances of getting wet are significantly increased. And so we've seen an uptick in recent weeks. But I think that our residents have taken this serious from day one. We've been one of the early cities to take certain protocol or establish certain protocol to protect our residents, and often seeing the state following our lead. And so we think that that's necessary. We want to continue to act in the best interest of our residents, and we're thankful for the vigilance of our residents, because without their personal responsibility, we wouldn't be able to stem the curve.
Let's talk the language of Washington politics. If there is to be a political reckoning in states like Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, has COVID now awakened a sleeping giant in the sense that Black people in all of those states who have incredibly large numbers recognize that we have been taken advantage of from day one with regards to healthcare, all of a sudden people woke up and they found out that they were essential workers driving a bus, or you're right, working in a grocery store. And now we're seeing the nation, about to have what could be its first Black female vice president. We've already had our first Black president, but now there seems to be a reckoning saying, we voted, now we want. What is the siren call to politicians not like yourself in Mississippi who've been taking the Black vote for granted?
I think that it's important to recognize that while we're looking at the issue of COVID, while we're looking at other social, economic, or social justice issues at this time, that they are two sides of the same coin. When I fancy myself as a student of history, we've had a lot of great organizers over time, but I would argue that the greatest organizer of all time is oppression, and it is sometimes taking a look into your conditions, which organizes people to make the change that is necessary. And so I think that this is an appropriate moment where we look at the energy which is surfacing, we concretize that energy and organize it in a way that truly speaks to our interests. Not only seeing candidates that promise the things that we want to see in our community, but drafting our own agenda, which represents what is best for our interest. And so I'd like to see communities endeavoring for self-determination, to obtain self-determination at a greater rate.
And finally, before I let you go, we've got 30 seconds left. What is the warning to politicians that fail to heed this moment?
I think it will be a critical mistake. I think that it will be a politically fatal mistake if you choose to do so. I think that people are crying out. People are losing loved ones. People are taking stock of their conditions in a much more significant way today than ever before. Often we know that people see healthcare as a luxury because they're making dinner table decisions between feeding their family and getting the healthcare that they need. But in this pandemic, it has truly exposed just how fragile our circumstance is. And so I think that it is important that we learn from this moment and we rise out of this better prepared than ever before. If voting rights was the battle of the 20th century, then healthcare and access to healthcare has to be the struggle for the 21st century.
Mayor Chokwe Lumumba in Jackson, Mississippi. Mayor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Be safe.